Hello guys, today we'll continue topic 5 about the established requirement and why this requirement is so important to achieve our goals. So this is the overview about the subject that we will be discussed by this class. So first is what and how and why. What need to be achieved, understand as much as possible about the user's task context. So we have to understand as much as we can about the user attitude, behavior, what the things he like, what the things he don't like. We have to understand as much as we can about our target users, so we can come out with the requirement but based on that users. So how we can done this by doing this activity, by data gathering activity, data analyze activity. So we have to do all these activities so we can estimate our users behavior, so we can know about our users much. Here is the example about how we have to understand the users. So in here, as you can see, this is a tree and this is the swing. This is how the users want it to be the swing as. And in here, that's how the developer understand, and then how it's been designed. So as you can see, it's make it worse. That this is not how the customers want the swing to be. And in here's the developers, or in here the big company how to describe it, or how being documented. There is nothing documented, so you can see that it's not related to the customers. And in here how it's being supported, there is not much support being given, but actually in the end this is what actually users need. This is what the customer requirement is, just simple as a swing like that, so he can use it simply and more effective way. Establish requirement. What the users want, what the users needs. Requirement need to clarify, complaints and rescoring. So will have an input and output. So the input is the requirement documents, maybe so the requirement that we will get from the real users that they were going to use our application or systems. So we're going to get a requirement from them to apply it in our application. So the output is a stable requirement, is a requirement that can be applied in our system. So when we call it why establish, so establish, it's the meaning that's requirement. It's useful and benefitful that can help to solve the problem in our current applications. So Voller shell is it's a kind of frameworks that can help us to get a requirement from the user. So we will get a requirement is, for example, 75 requirement, and then there is 9 types of requirement, and the users that been tested on is 6. So we'll give some descriptions about what we want to gather information from, and what the requirement they needs for our applications. And we can see it's like 3 people that are satisfied with the current application, while 5 are not. So we have to know these 5 what is the requirement they need to make them satisfied to use our application. So this is the example about the Voller requirement template that we can describe here, the project drive. So this project is going to serve which community, and how I'm going to achieve my goal by using this project, and the functionals requirement and non-functionals requirement. So usually we want to develop application. This is what we care the most, the functionals requirement. I mean by functional requirements, the functionals that can appear in front of the users. The users can have to do his goal, to achieve his objective by short way and simple way. So this is that where I get the requirement from the users, so I can apply it on my new applications. So we have different kind of requirement, which is we just now we mentioned about the functionals and non-functionals. So the functional is what the system should do, and the main focus on the requirement activity. So for example, if I have a system with the payment, so in the payment features, what the requirement the users needs, so I can add it to my application. So the functionals, the things that I can see it in my system, but the non-functionals is the behind sensors, so the things like memory size, security, response time. So also I have to take care about it as well. So how much security in that system, in that application when I'm going to use, and the response time, how long it takes to achieve my goal, and the data also, what kind of data need to be stored. So different users, different data. For example, if you have a guest and users and admin and managers, so each one have a different type of data of entry, and also it will be stored in different database as well. Different kind of requirement, also environment, like physical, socials, organizations. So when I come out to get requirement, I need to be take care about these three phases, which is physical and social organizations, and I can deliver to the users in good ways that he can do in the socials. For example, share files, or great distance, like if you have a far places. So this application can help me to achieve my goal. So I need to get the requirement based on these three phases, so the applications can serve the customers in good way. So this is the example about the underwater computing. So this person is a diving person. So for example, he need to have a virtual display, and he need to have cord, and he have to have a CPU and oxygen as well, and the swimming suit as well. So when this is kind of example about the requirement that I need, so to achieve the person to, so the person can go and do diving in good way, so without the virtual display, so he cannot see inside the sea, or without the oxygen he cannot breathe. So all these requirements needs, so the person can do the diving in good way. So this is the device about the underwater computing. So I need all these features to be available in the device in order to make the diving persons comfortable or good to use. So this is my product, for example, and I want to deliver to the users. So I need to come out with the input fingers, and to be control and drive inside the sea. When I get data from the users, I should know whose are the users. So different kind of requirement. The users, who are the users? So that I should know about his nationality, for example, education's background, attitude of to computer. So I should know the age, gender, like the demographic part about the user. So when I target that markets, I know what kind of people I'm going to serve. And for example, the system use is they are expert, they are beginner, they are moderators people. So each one have a different type of using in my applications. So when I come to develop my new technology, so I should know my target markets. What are the user's capabilities? So humans are very in many dimensions. For example, if I want to develop a phone with a big screen or small screen, so if I come out with the small screens, some of the peoples have size of the hand which is big hand, so it will be not comfortable to using a small screen. So I should know my market targets and the size of the hand, for example, the motorability of many factors that's suitable for certain input and output device. For example, also the height, if I want to develop a product to the Asian people, usually it's shorter than us. So I should know the heights of the peoples as physically, and the strength. For example, when I want to develop for product for a child, usually the child, they will play with a toy, and they will give a power to use it, so I should make it a strong. All these things I should take it in concern when I develop a product. And we will talk about persona. Persona, it's like the CV of you, the background of you is just the whole details, like your education's background, your age, your gender, pictures of you, is just to describe who are the users for this specific product or application or systems. So as I am as a developer, I will know my users, what basically their background. So when I come out with the product based on them, feedback of background of study, gender, age, all these things that I have to put in mind. So persona is just like the CV of the person. So this is the example about persona. Is basically just the feedbacks about my customer, about my users. So from the feedbacks from them, I will know what kind of users that I will target in my markets. So basically when I come out with a new technology thing, so I know my users what which levels they reach in the technology. Another example about persona, so I will from Gina, I will know what is her background, what is her motivations, what is her things that she's interesting, and how old is she, where she living, which high school she finished, and which educated now, in which part of educated she is. So basically I will just know informations about my users, so it's easy when I come up with the product based on the things they need. And we will go to the part two, data gathering from the requirements of the users. So we will be discussing about all these points that we will be covered in our class today. Okay, so in five key issue, first we'll setting a goals. So of course, if we want to develop a new applications, so we already know our goal. So basically, we will be asking some questions to achieve this goal. So we will do the data collections uh, just to achieve these kind of goals. And then the second one is identify the participants. So when we go to do a collecting data, we should know who's our respondent for this kind of product. And the number three is the relationship with the participants. So we cannot go to our cousin or our uncle or our family and ask them what you think about my product, or even if we go to one family and asking the mom and dad brothers to ask them about our product, because they will be more sensitive, then they will just go emotional with us and they will just tell us yes, it's good and nice. And if I go to one family and ask them, then most of the family, they will be the answers similar to each others. And number four is triangulations. So when we do the data collection, we have to go to more people. So we have to collect more people to get opinions from more customers, more users, and then we have to use more than one approach. So we can use the qualitative and quantitative as well to make more good evidence to prove that having an issue with the current product. So we can come out with our own products. And then number five is the pilot study. Usually the pilot study done in the first stage when you come out with the product and you don't want to test it on the whole populations, so you just choose from the populations like 10% of the population or 20% of the populations, and you ask them to answers, to give you requirement to tell you to evaluate your product. Basically, this 20% that will be presented the 100. So the pilot study is the first stage when you want to test your product, when you want to get requirement from the users. And then later on, you can go to your sampling, your big sampling. So when we want to do collecting data gatherings, there is one type we call data recording, which is we can take a note or audio, video, or photography just to get more data collecting and requirement from the users. So when we these kind of data collection, we call it qualitatives because you are using a record, a video, photographs just to give more evidence that uh, to gather information from the users. Okay, this is the example about the data gatherings from the audio and video and photo, as we said. So this is the criteria that I will be measuring and the comparisons. So for example, for the flexibilities, when we take the notes and plus the camera, it's the people's that saying they are very flexible. So based on the users and the customers answers, they say it's very flexible. But in audio and plus camera, they say flexible relatives to unfortunately. And then to the video, they say this need to more updated, need more features to get more flexible. So basically we come out with the criteria, and basically we will tell them this is the things that we have, so you guys can answer us and tell us which one you think is the best according to these criteria. So just now as we said about the flexibility, that the people they will say okay, noted, and plus cameras, this is they will be very flexible. And then we have the interview, which is the conversation with the purpose. Is good for exploring the issue. Development team members can connect with the stockholders, and we can divide it to the three, which is unstructured, structured, and semi-structured. So what I mean by unstructured, just simply you just go to the interview, and then the conversations that you will do with the stockholders or with the users, then you just you wrote it down all. But usually because you don't have the goal, when you don't have prepared the question in a good way, so usually this unstructured method, it will be not good for your research because you didn't have a goals to go, you don't have the main topics to talk with your interviewers. But structured, usually you will come out with some questions based on the problem that you identify and you're trying to solve, and then you try to ask the users. It's kind of good, but it's will not give it will give limited to the users to answer the questions, because basically the users or the customer, they will answer all your questions that you ask them to do. They cannot tell you what else they want. So but the semi structures, which is kind of good, it's both. Actually you ask them some questions and then you ask them opinion to discuss with you, so kind of quantitative with the qualitatives. And then the force groups. So basically, force groups, you will just bring the 100 people, then you will divide them to, for example, 4 groups. Each groups have 20 members, and then you will just sit with them in a room, and you will kind of ask them some questions based on the application you want to develop or based on the product that you want to come out with, and they will answer you based on them opinion. In interview questions, they have two types, which is closed questions and open questions. The closed questions, when you ask them their opinions, and they can answer by yes or no. And the open questions, maybe they just adding, they just give in 2 word or 3 words sentence that can tell what them opinions. But try to avoid when you develop questions or you develop a questionnaires that you want to ask your respondent. Try to avoid these kind of questions, like long questions, and for the question why do you like, because kind of the users will be bored if your question is too long and he cannot understand, and he will get so tired to reply. Usually the users, they just want to give you the answers in short term. In running the interview, you have to have some strategies that you make your respondent, your answers to your questions, they will have intentions to reply you, to tell you honestly, and to give you the right answers. So you have to have a strategy like introduction. You just explain about yourself, tell who you are and what you are been working on, and maybe you just start to explain about the product in short terms. Then you start to warm up, make some questions easy to understand, and the respondent will be interesting to answers. And then you go to the main body, which is this is where you get the questions, the main questions that you want to get from your respondent. And later on you have to closely the interview and thank the interview for spending some time with you to answer your questions and to help you to achieve your project. And then you can get his sign or take pictures with him, so that you have from some proof that you have done the interview with these users. And then the context inquiry. Usually the context inquiry is the things when you have done the interview with your respondent. You will have books and you write down all the things that you have been discussed with your respondent, or even you have to make some records to record his voice while he is answering your questions. So you will have this context is a text that you will be analyze the questions that you've been asking him, and then the respondent, the answers that he give it to you. So you will have to analyze his answers, and you get the main goals that you want to reach, or you will have to analyze his audio, voice, and then you get the answers that you have been asking him. So it's the process how you will do the context inquiry, and have a lot of tools and programs that can help you to analyze the text, or help you to analyze the voice as well. A questionnaire is kind of a list of the questions to assess your criteria. So when you have you come out with a product and you want to asking the users respondent to answer your questions, so you have to come out with the criteria. Basically they will answer the question based on these criteria. So for example, you have four criteria, which is login, view, purchase, payments. So you want to evaluate the payments in that application or in that website. So it would come out with the kind of questions type, 5 questions, 6 questions, basically just to determine the payment criteria. So you've just been asking the questions about the payment features in that systems, and then the respondent will answer you based on your question. And you don't have to come out with the question by your own, is because that's the developer, the researchers that have been developed some questions to measure all the factors that's been mentioned. So you just have to modify based on your criteria. And sampling is when you are choose your populations that you want to target, the people that you want to target. So usually if you want to do some research about Iraq, you cannot just go to every Iraqi guy and tell him to answer your questionnaire. So you can choose some populations. That's technique, we call it sampling techniques. So when you come out with a questionnaire design, you have to have the impact of questions that can be influenced by the questions order. So when I can read your questions, it can be influenced what you want to reach to. So it will not make it difficult for the users to understand your questions. And you may need different versions of questionnaires for different populations, because not all your population will be same educated or the same understand for the new technology. So you have to make maybe more than one versions of questions. And as we talk about it, you have to avoid long questionnaire, because it will be boring for the users, and then he will be not interesting to answer it honest the questions, though you just will just tick anything that front of him without giving you the honest answers. And in the questionnaires they have many types of answering the formatted They have a yes and no checkbox. So when you answer him like, did you finish high school, then he can say yes or no, or at least or just by tick the checkbox, or by something called, we call it Laker skill. So Laker skills and something like 4, 5, 7 or more point skill. So what I mean by this one, usually when we're asking the users, are you satisfied with the current applications, then we will give him, if you answer number one, it means you are agree. If you answer number two, that you are mediators, that you are not agree or not disagree, or if you answer number three, you are disagree. So usually you will give a range to the users to answer, to evaluate your them satisfaction, either from 1 to 7, so they can rate them interesting or satisfied with the current applications. Okay, this is the example about the Laker skills. So when these questions come out, so this is the strongly agree. If he vote here, it means he's strongly agree, or in here he's agree only, or here he's a mediator, or here he's disagree, or here is this strongly disagree. So this is what we mean by Laker skills. So we can give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a 5 Laker skills. There is another skills to measuring, which is, we call it systematics, and this is the example about the systematics. Then you have to have some measurement between like a good or bad, like orange, we say it's healthy or unhealthy. So this is considered as healthy, is considered as okay, and this is considered in the middle, and this is considered as unhealthy, and this one is very unhealthy. So when the users rate here, so it's mean that the orange is very healthy. And for example, for the good taste, as this one considered as very good taste, and this one considered as good taste, and this one considered as okay, and bad taste, very bad taste. So when the user rate in here, it means that they are very good taste. And the rest also the same, like the messy and clean, all this one. So in the middle is like, okay, will be. And usually in the end of the questionnaires, we will be adding some questions to asking the users. It's just a short answer, don't have to be so long. And just like, what is your opinion about the amount of homework giving each week? So the users can answer by short, just says like, okay, I'm feeling comfortable with it, or I just don't feel comfortable with that one. So usually this kind of questionnaires will make the users not interesting to write down things. Usually the first page about the questionnaires will be in, they call it demographic part. The demographic part, they will ask you about your age, your gender, your place of living, your income, your educations, these kind of information, so they know what kind of user are you when you're answering the questions. And there is, sometimes they consider your name, your email, your contact, your mail. So if there is anything that they can contact you in the futures to ask you about why did you answer your opinion, which is usually is considered when you do the questionnaires. It should be private answers. Like when you do some answers, it's just confidence, so it cannot be give to information, details, private information like my name, my email, my contact numbers, or anything like that. And this is another example about questionnaire structures. So they ask you about relevant experience with this one, so you can just answer it yes or something. So but it's kind of, that's why um, the users will be taking so long to answer these kind of questions. So when you design the questionnaires, you have to encourage the good responding to answers. So don't make the question so long, or don't make the questionnaires not clear to the respondents so they cannot understand. And you can follow up with the email, phone call, letters, provide incentives, and And usually you have to get a respondent for teams uh, from your populations, or 20 is often is acceptable as well. So if your population is, let's say, 1,000, if you get 200 people who's respondent for your question is considered as accepted, but it's in a week, because you need a high rate of respondent, so you will get a good result. So this is an example of find poorly designed features, when they ask to state your age in a year, and they give you a small box that you cannot, or they give you a limited choice here between 1 year, 2 years, or sometimes you just have, you have more and you want to mention more. Or do you use the webs, they would just give you a few choices that does not make you choose. So it's find a poorly designed features is not good for the respondent to be attractive to use your questionnaire. And we will talk about the advantage about the online questionnaire. Nowadays with the pandemics things, it's too hard to go to the respondent and give them hand to hand and ask them to reply or to answer the questions immediately. So it's just easy. We can post the links, like we do the Google form these days, and we just ask the users to be replying for our questionnaires. So respondents are usually received quickly, because you don't have to go to them place. Even if you want to do data collection about other country, you just can email them or send them by Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever. Or no copy and postage cost, so there is no cost because you are just using the internet online, and data can be collected in database for analyze. So the Google form will help you to analyze how many people respond and how many says these questions they like or they don't like or whatever. So here is the example about the online questionnaire, which is, I think, old versions, and as you can see, it's not too much clear, but it can help the users to answer all the questions online without writing things or anything. And this is another example about the online questionnaires, which is they can use the Google form and easy to see, and is more interesting and to interact the users to use that kind of survey to answers the questions. And we will talk about the observations. Observations is kind of when you go to that place and you go to that community and to that people who's the users of you, and you just go and try to identify the problem just by observing and monitoring and just see the problem, what is happening in front of you. Then you can identify the problem there is, and then you can find the solutions for it. This is the example about the observations. They just send the device with the camera to the moon or to the Mars, so it can be recorded the things around, and it's when it's send the data that it's recorded and to the big company, so the big company can analyze the videos and the pictures that these devices taking in the Mars, so can get information from the data that been collected. So as we're talking about the structures of the interview, the structures of the questionnaires, also there's structures for the observations, but there's a three easy to remember part, which is the person's who, the places where, and the things is what. So you have to know who's the person that you are targeted. So you go to that person and you go and observe and monitoring and see the behaviors and the place. For example, just now when we talk about the place that we have to go to different place, geographic place, different country, so we know where is that place, and we go to analyze it by observing. And the third one is the thing is what. So if there is a product or a device or a website, so we know what is that things, so we can go and also observe to know what is there is a problem in that kind of product. Ethnography is a systematic study of people and cultures. So ethnography is mean it's like you just go to that kind of people, that's populations of peoples that you want to target, and then you try to see what's the problem that they face, and you can gather data from them as well. So this is some links that you can watch and see in YouTube. That's something about ethnography. So this is the example about the ethnographies that's enhance the people that they monitors to see if there is any things will be happening in the future. So they will be alerts by data analyze. They will collect data based on that place that things will be happening, and they can know what will be happening in the futures. So, so when we collect the data for the ethnography, we can be online by virtual online, and can be online and offline activity, and can be by virtual worlds, and can by ethical considerations and presentation issue and our difference. There is a lot of ways to that we can uh, get requirement of the data or collect gathering data from the ethnography. And when you do the data collections for the observations, there is some materials that can help you while you do the data collections. So there is activity you can do, like the activity of job descriptions, so you can know that what is the job of your respondents, and can record of the talking to the place between the parents. So you can you can take some video, some pictures while you are in the meetings with him, while he's doing his work. So you can all these data you can help you to identify the problem, and then it's to make sure that you are in touch with the users. Direct observation in control environments. There is many ways. One of the ways that think all the techniques. So these techniques usually you can give the product to the users or the application or the systems, and you ask them to use it and to tell them how they feel while they use it. That's kind of application or that product. So you can record whatever they telling you that time, or the other way where we can say that the focus of the problem user has. So usually to tell what kind of problem that these applications have or these systems have, so you can identify the problem. There is another way of the observations control environment, which is indirect way, where you can tracking your user activity. So that, for example, how the users will interact with that system, how many time will be logging to that system, how many time will be viewing the document. So you may know that your users are interested or not, or what there is the problem. So there is indirect observations. Another way of collecting data, which is web analytics, a system of the tool of techniques for optimized web usage by measuring, collection, analyze, and report a web data. So it's actually the same like when as the user goes to visit that specific application, that specific website, so you can monitors them activity while they use the application, so you can know how many visitors that's been in the previous years and how many now, so you can know that the percentages increase or decrease. There is people who don't like the system, and what is the problem in there. So this is the example about the Google Analytics dashboard for idbooks.com. So in here in the ID books that the users can, a developer sorry, can monitors the user's activity in that website. So he knows that how many visitors that been visiting the websites during this period or this period or this period as well. So in here you can see it's like the maximum visitors and how many the new visitor as well. So in here that's why you have to analyze the data, why users have been visiting in this period much and in this period less. Is it because of the availabilities of the books in the website or the quality of the books, so he can identify the problem, and then he try to come out with the new solutions that he can help him to solve the applications. And sometimes when we want to be more accurate by our data collections, we usually use more than one technique. So we combine, for example, the questionnaires, the survey, with the interview as well, or with the web analyze with the interview as well. But usually these things depend on the focus of the study, the participant involved, the nature of the techniques, the resource available, time available as well. So usually if you want to get perfect data collection, usually use more than one techniques for your project, so you can have more accurate data to help you to analyze or to identify the problem that the users faces. So in here is some example about the ethnographic study, interview, usability, taste, and the user participation. So he will bring, as a developer, will try to bring users and ask the users to try the new systems, that new application and new websites that he developed, and try to see the usabilities and the user participate, how the system are usable and they are understandable for the users, and then he can observe and just write down what informations that he get based on the user's experience of using the applications. There is some point we have to take it in considerations when we do the data gatherings. So as you know, guys, when we want to develop applications or website, we actually to serve the users, but sometimes the users not only the community, there is the stockholders as well, that they can buy our system, they can buy our products as well. So we have to take in considerations who's the stockholders, and we have to identify them as either managers or either the CEO or the developer teams, so we have to know them. And when we do apply the data gatherings, we have to know the real users, not just people who managing to use these systems. So we want to know the people who really going to interact with our new system, with the new products. And as well, we have to know the economic and the business environment change. We have to take it in considerations as well. So when we come out with the products, we have to know the economic, the ability of the markets to buy our product. Another things that we have to put in the considerations when we do the gatherings, it's the requirement management. When we get the requirement from the users, how we going to be applied in our new system, new application, new product. And the communications also is very important, to have a communication with your team to give the updates that were you reach in your developed parts. And also you have to have a communication with your customers, so you update your customers about your last versions of updates as well. So all these you have to take it in considerations as well. So there is a guideline when you do the data gatherings. As we said, it's when we develop applications or a website or any product, we have to identify who's the stockholders, because when we want to sell our systems or our application, we want to sell to big company that they can use it to serve them users as well. So we have to identify who's the stockholders, and we have to go and meet them and get some requirement from them to apply it in our new system, and then involve more than one representative from each stakeholders group. So we have to get more stockholders as we can, and we can have like conversations, try to get data from them and to know what actually they need, and use combinations of data gathering techniques. As we said, we usually, when we want to get more accurate data, better we use like more than one techniques, which is we say it's like survey and interview, web app analyze and interview. All we have to have more than one techniques to gather data and support the process of the as a prototype and text descriptions. Usually when we develop the applications or systems, we have to have prototypes like to show the the concept of our applications, so the stockholders or the users knows that what kind of system is that, and he knows that he can reach his goal easy. After we get the data from the stockholders or the users, usually we start immediately to analyze these data because we don't want to have a big gap between the data analyze and the last product, because we want to serve the community as soon as we can, and we have to keep in touch with them. If you, for example, you do the data collection this year and you start to analyze after 3 years, 4 years, and maybe the new technology coming, a new application coming, so the users no need your systems anymore. And this is the summary of the chapter, so please guys take a look about this chapter and try to come out with any questions, then later we can discuss in the class as well. Thank you so much.